Today on Politics Unplugged, the Arizona Attorney General launched another legal strike against the Trump administration. We speak with her. The White House took the country to war in the Middle East again. How's it playing politically? And Kristi Noem is out as Trump's Homeland Security chief. The panel breaks it all down now on Politics Unplugged. Good evening. I'm political editor Dennis Welch. This is Politics Unplugged, and Arizona Attorney General Kris Mayes has been a consistent thorn in President Trump's side, fighting again what she believes has been an illegal actions by the White House. This week, she led a group of attorneys general in suing the White House over the president's latest round of tariffs, and she joins us now to talk about that and more than that. So here we are again. Why are you suing the president again over his latest rounds of tariffs?
Well, thanks for having me, Dennis. You know, I mean, as you know, we defeated President Trump's IEEPA tariffs in front of the Supreme Court.
And IEEPA is an acronym for?
For the International Economic Procedures Act. But we defeated that, and the Supreme Court was very clear that the president does not have the authority to do these sweeping tariffs. And then, you know, literally in the days after, a few days after that defeat, he announces that he's going to try to impose another 10 or 15% tariff under a separate act called Section 122 of the 1974 Trade Act, which also has never been used to enforce tariffs. So that's illegal. And I think it's really important to remember how awful these tariffs are. These are taxes on Arizonans, right? I mean, a 10% tariff means that Arizonans will pay an additional $1,200 a year. 15% would be even more than that. And so it's unconstitutional. The Supreme Court said that, and we had to go back in and sue him again because what he did again is unconstitutional.
And let me ask you this. I know you get asked this maybe all the time, but it's worth asking again. Do you think your office spends too much time, too many resources fighting this Trump administration? I mean, what number of lawsuit are we at here? 30 what?
7. Look, I wish I didn't have to be doing this. I mean, you know, we certainly, I don't wake up every day wanting to sue the federal government. But when we have to, when we need to protect the people of Arizona from these taxes, for instance, these tariffs, you know, I'm going to do it. This is $1,200 is a lot of money to most Arizona families. That's money they can't spend on food, on rent, on utilities. They cannot afford these tariffs, and they're unconstitutional. So I'm going to do that 6 ways to Sunday if it means protecting the people of our state.
But certain defenders of the tariffs will also say, regarding the economics of the whole thing, is they're like, well, you know, all the numbers still show that the economy is still doing pretty good. It hasn't crashed the economy like a lot of experts predicted initially when he put in his first round of tariffs.
Well, you know, tell that to the small businesses all across the state of Arizona that are on the verge of bankruptcy because of these tariffs. And I would just beg to differ. We just saw some jobs numbers that came out this morning that are awful. And so I think it is having an impact on the economy, and I think that's going to continue to ripple throughout the economy. And we know that it's having an impact not only on individual families and consumers, but also small businesses.
Well, what's the next step then? Can consumers, can people in Arizona expect to see, as you say, relief anytime soon? Or is this going to play out again for a long time while it play in the courts?
Well, so I think that what we're going to see is, what we are seeing already is an effort by larger businesses to go after refunds associated with the first round of tariffs, and then hopefully what's called the Court of International Trade will set up a system that people can get these refunds. I hope it's not just for large businesses, but also for small businesses and for consumers that lost out this last year. And then, you know, we'll see about this next round of tariffs.
So with the refunds on the tariffs, is your office, how are you going to be setting up anything to help people if they feel like they're deserving a refund? Or is there anything your office is doing?
You know, what we're doing is, right now, is we're monitoring what's going on in the Court of International Trade. Certainly, we are interested in trying to help people do that. But in the first instance, it is up to basically the folks who created this mess, the federal government, to create a process, you know, for getting those refunds back to people. Frankly, it should be probably CBP, which is the entity that takes in these tariffs, and that entity is responsible for getting money back to people.
All right, let's move on to another one of your favorite topics. There's the Empowerment Scholarship Accounts School Voucher Program. You've been looking into misspending in that program. Recently, you kind of went through, did a dive on some of the purchases that were made there. This is a more recent version of things you've already done. What did you find recently?
Well, I mean, we found a tremendous amount of misspending by parents using vouchers. And it's happening because Tom Horne is basically saying to voucher parents, you can spend up to $2,000, and we're basically not even going to look at it on the front end. And so that is leading to a situation where we're finding some parents, not all, but more than we should be finding, spending up to $2,000 on things like diamond rings, flat screen TVs, and now condoms. Okay, these are clearly not things that our taxpayer dollars should be spent on. And so we've sent now 2 letters to Tom Horne. This latest letter said, hey, you know, show us what measures you are putting in place to stop these improper, frankly, fraudulent expenditures.
Now, you came up with, was it your office that came up, or was it the superintendent, 20%?
Yeah, it's about 20%.
Percent of the purchases were made should have been unallowable?
Yeah, I mean, that's based on the information that we were able to gather. I think there are others that are also investigating this, and you know, 20% is too much. 20% misspending of taxpayer dollars is just massively too much. Imagine any other program where that was happening. So
we're talking about a program that's about what, $1 billion a year?
Yeah, it's $1 billion.
So you're talking about 20%. What's that? 200 million?
I mean, potentially. I mean, if you extrapolate out, that was, of course, of the sample that we had at the time. So, you know, that's a lot of money, Dennis. And that is an unacceptable amount of misspending. And at a minimum, look, why are the Republicans not doing anything to set up guardrails for this program? If they love the voucher program so much, they should also be interested in not seeing fraud in that program. And so, you know, I call on them. They're not doing anything this legislative session, it looks like, to prevent this kind of fraud, and I will continue to prosecute it, and I will continue to do public monies investigations as long as I have to. Now,
I'm not speaking for the superintendent, but I believe he has said before that he is investigating this stuff, and he has caught misspending. He says he is doing his job, even though the $2,000 limit is just approved on the front end. He is catching people misappropriating this money.
Well, I think he's doing what he calls a risk-based audit on the back end of some of this. And yes, he has referred some cases over to our office. But, you know, when you're talking about 20%, we need something on the front end. We should not allow, and we should not find it acceptable that you know, we have 20% misspending in this program. There should be measures on the front end. Think about what we could do with AI. You know, simple AI searches that say that where you would catch the word, you know, flat screen TV or, you know, trip to Disneyland. This is obviously illegitimate and something that would be pretty easy to implement.
All right, well, I'll stop it right there. So thanks for stopping by here. And up next, I'm bringing in our panel to talk about all of this week's major headlines, including Kristi Noem ousted from Homeland Security. That's next on Politics Unplugged.
The Homeland Security chief is out. Masks are back and the war in Iran expands. This is your political roundup. President Donald Trump canned his Homeland Security chief, Kristi Noem. This follows intense questioning from Congress about her handling of the department and a big money advertising campaign that featured her. Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullen will replace Noem at DHS. Before politics, the Republican lawmaker was a rancher, plumber, and mixed martial arts fighter with a 5-0 record as a professional. The week-long war in Iran has spread beyond the Mideast as public polling shows a strong majority of Americans oppose the military action. Meanwhile, in Texas, conservative Congressman Dan Crenshaw suffered a surprising defeat in his primary that could have national implications in the balance of power after the midterms. And finally, turns out Arizona Republicans like masks. No, not for you, but for cops. The GOP-led legislature voted to beef up penalties for people who commit crimes while covering their face, but rejected a proposal that would ban local police from masking up. And that is your political roundup for the week.
And let's bring in the panel right now to talk about all of that. Democratic consultant Tony Cani and Republican Marcus Dell'Artino. Let's start with you. As always, it seems like these days, Marcus. Let's talk about that. Let's get your take. President fires Kristi Noem. Was this a surprise? It's one of those things it's a surprise, but then you look back, it's like, well, should we not have been surprised?
I absolutely was not surprised. Yeah. I think a lot of people probably were surprised. But if you walked through the history of this, I mean, a lot of this was pre-planned. I don't think she was in on the plan, I will tell you this much, but I think the majority of this was a well-done plan to sort of get her to this point. And even Senator Kennedy in post-interviews would admit to you that, I talked to the president, he was madder than some kind of hornet, a war hornet or something. And he at that point, then, the president asked him what he thought he should do, and he had a suggestion for him, which was his fellow senator to take over Homeland.
Yeah, and the timing of the whole announcement was pretty interesting, too, because Kristi Noem was about to speak to an audience. She was on camera. CNN,
I think she might be the only person in the country who was surprised that she got fired, because she seemed to find out on TV, which is wild.
Yeah, I think my question to you was like, do you think that was intentional? And what's the message if that was intentional?
I don't know if it was intentional. I mean, maybe. I actually doubt that they even knew where she was going to be or what she was going to do. I think that it shows that they didn't care how she found out. I think that might be a bigger thing. But, she has done a terrible job, both in sort of her actual responsibilities and in talking about them. And I think part of the reason why the president wanted to make a change isn't because he didn't like some of the other stuff that I think was in the news, like the terrible weekend in Minneapolis or Minnesota. I think it was because she was embarrassing him, and then she really couldn't articulate in a way that he wanted her to sort of defend the program.
Was this the kind of proverbial nail in that political coffin when Senator Kennedy was asking her about the $200 million ad campaign that Noem said the president knew about, and then the president said, I didn't know anything about this?
Yeah, that's well reported. So and again, Senator Kennedy told the president exactly what she said, and of course by that time it had been all over TV, and he was very upset, and I think it underscores how upset that he canned her before she's doing a speech and didn't tell her. But he was very upset that she had reported that he was well aware of the advertising campaign. What she's unaware of, and we'll go into this probably a little bit more in the podcast, is that when you issue an RFP to an unknown company who is set up 8 days before this $200 million goes out the door, every political consultant in America, because we all really are very competitive, is a nice way to put it. We want to know who got that $200 million.
And you want a fair shot at it.
And so this has been brewing for quite some time, and I think his fellow consultants ended up, sort of taking care of the problem.
Democrats see this as maybe a signal that there's going to be change at DHS, or do you think it's going to be more of the status quo moving forward?
I think it's more of the status quo. He didn't pick an insider. He didn't pick anybody who has experience. He picked a senator that I think he likes when he's on TV, and so I think that the confirmation process is going to be a very public, very big moment. And I think that that's probably what Democrats are looking forward to. It's a way to bring up again the reasons why they have not wanted to fund, continued operations, with the sort of that partial shutdown. And so, yeah, I think there's going to be some fireworks.
Yeah, you're talking about Oklahoma Senator Mark Wayne Mullen. He's a former wrestler. He was a businessman, a rancher, plumber, I believe. He was also a professional MMA mixed martial arts fighter. What do you make of this pick?
I think I think the president, again, was super upset. And I think Senator Kennedy, who he admitted on TV, made a suggestion to the president, and the president immediately took it, indicating how upset he was. And I think, the one thing I can tell you is I don't think there's going to be any TV advertisements that we've seen, like with Kristi Noem, dancing $200 million buy, and I think those days are over. So I think that does signal there will be at least that kind of change at the department.
Yeah, and from the reporting we've seen, it looks like he's probably going to get confirmed, but it's going to be along a very party line vote. You might have John Fetterman from Pennsylvania who crosses over to vote for this guy. I think he has said he's going to vote for him. But this isn't like the Senate of yesteryear, where mostly when senators were confirmed for cabinet picks, they just was kind of a rubber stamp moving forward because they had relationships with this guy. Ruben Gallego told me shortly before we started taping this show that he's probably not going to vote for him. You see this as a very partisan vote coming up?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a partisan vote, and potentially some of the Republicans who have been critical of the way that the administration has carried out their mass deportation plan, they may talk a big game, talk about whether or not what he's going to do. But I suspect that they end up will vote to confirm him. And so, and the other part about it is that he hasn't been in the Senate for very long, so it's not like he has a ton of long relationships with people. And that's one of the things with sort of like turnover of the Senate. I agree with Marcus that he was picked for some sort of reason that wasn't a strategic reason to kind of get through the Senate. It seems like it was more of a...
And should the president be using this moment to try to pivot away from what from these mass deportations, that have been playing out on TV, and look for a different way to do this?
I don't. We've talked about this. I think probably the last couple segments of show, and that is the president doesn't pivot a whole lot. He's more of a double down, or triple down. And I would, if I had my guess, I think we're looking at that strategy, the double down strategy.
And I think also, like, it's not like this was the person that was actually directing the administration's immigration policy. It seems that Stephen Miller, who is a very high-ranked person in the administration, so this is just another person, and perhaps Miller thinks he'll do more of what he says. Who knows? We'll just have to see.
Yeah, and that's something I've been hearing from a lot of Democrats. They are pointing fingers at Stephen Miller. I mean, this seems like it's almost a tactic at this point, a talking point with Democrats. Why?
I think it's because he's a uniquely reprehensible person. I think it actually might not be necessarily a strategic thing, because I personally think it'd be better to point at the president. Now that I'm sort of backpedaling on it, you should point it at the president, not the person who works for him. But he's been very vocal. He's been out there. It's been clear that this is his policy. And so I think that's the reason why we tend to point to him.
All right, we're going to have to take a quick break here. But when we come back, the U.S. goes to war with Iran, and the polls show people aren't real happy about it. When Politics Unplugged continues. And to get more in-depth on the issues, check out the Politics Unplugged podcast this week. Marcus and Tony are sticking around for that podcast. The Politics Unplugged podcast drops every Sunday evening wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for sticking around, and thanks for sticking around for the podcast later. We're going to go a lot more in-depth on a lot of these issues. Now, let's talk about the war in Iran. It's at the time of this taping, we're a little short, like 6 days into this. Politically, it doesn't seem like the American public has an appetite for this at all right now.
I think that I don't think they don't, and part of it is that this is a nation that we have a lot of fear about. It's not like going into Venezuela. People didn't think there could be sort of military repercussions in a huge way, and I think that's a part of it. Is people are very concerned, about how this is going to spread, and they're seeing it spread. I also think that the president has been pretty bad at responding to questions about the types of losses and the sacrifice that Americans will make as a result of this. Sort of dismissive, well, yeah, people die in war, that kind of a thing. I think that is going to catch up with him, in addition to the conflict between the way he campaigned and what he said he would do to sort of never get into these types of conflicts and what's happening now. And then I think the last thing I would say is that, like, there's a younger base of conservatives who tend to be very against sort of this type of interventionism, and that's a group of people that I wonder where they're going to be politically, when it comes to the elections.
And the Trump supporters, do you think he pays a price for this politically after campaigning that he was going to end foreign wars? It was America first. We're not going to get involved in this kinds of stuff. Or a lot of his supporters, do you think, just go wherever he leads them?
Here's what I think, and that is everybody's against a war until they find out that the enemy had a nuclear weapon and was ready to decimate the United States of America. And so to the extent that the president can vocalize that and message that for the next few months of the detrimental nature of what these people were doing in Iran, and make them understand that, you know, they were our mortal enemy and we were trying to get them to not develop a nuclear weapon, but they decided to do it anyway, I think that the people will come around if we're able to keep boots off the ground. And that is really, it's the uncertainty that's leading to some people doubting what we did there, and it's because we're afraid of getting back into an Iraqi war.
Yeah. I think part of the issue is that the president has told us previously that he has already decimated their program, right? Like he said that
a year ago or in June.
A year ago, and so now it's like, oh, did you or did you not? So that's bringing a lot of question into it. And from a purely political perspective, and this is a way more serious topic than the politics. When I'm thinking about who's going out to vote, those younger sort of male conservatives who really were huge in the last election cycle, if they tend to be more MAGA and against interventionism, I could see a lot of them just choosing not to vote, like just because it's a midterm election anyway. Like they might not be motivated to go and cast a ballot, and I think that could hurt, Republican candidates.
Yeah, and we saw how the last presidential election was about prices and affordability. We know this midterm is about affordability, and we're already seeing the price of oil skyrocket at this point. Trump probably pays a heavy political price if that continues. Correct?
If that were to continue, but I don't think it's going to continue very long. And frankly, I expect and it's already been openly talked about, the U.S. Navy is going to escort these ships out of the strait and free up that oil supply. And that's why I think you've seen such a focus on the United States Navy taking out the entire Iranian Navy and to free up those assets and let those ships flow.
And there's also the question of funding on this war. The Republicans and the administration is already going for a supplemental on this. I do know Senator Gallego, again, recently told me that he's not going to vote for that supplemental. Do you think Democrats in general are going to vote for that? I
think that there is a concern that that this is a broader conflict than some other previous actions that were authorized, by, the authorization that came after 9/11. And I think that there is a concern that that the Republicans in the Senate and in Congress have not really held the president accountable, and this is like a lever that they have. And so I think that that's the reason why they're saying this. I think that they need to stand up because they want to force this conversation about congressional authority in these types of military interactions. And so I could see a lot of Democrats not voting for it, but then there's going to be a lot of pressure on some of them to actually, to vote for it, because they don't want to be viewed as somebody who is unwilling to sort of support the people who are in harm's way and are in the fight. And so that's the sort of gambit that the Republicans are playing. I suspect a lot of the Democrats are going to be willing to sort of stand up to it, though.
All right, we're going to have to end it right there, but we're going to talk more about this on the podcast. So that's all the time we have this week. We'll be sure to join us next week for more Politics Unplugged. Good night.